Now, class, we are all familiar with the classic philosophical question of which came first, the chicken or the egg. But more difficult to answer is which came first, the love for death and taxes or the love for anime waifus. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video. And today I've been asked to play Death and Taxes, which is a deck near and dear to my heart. However, we are not playing a stock Death and Taxes list. We are playing a spicy list that has Chrome Mox in it. And to talk about why this may or may not be a good idea, I'm going to go back in my time machine to 2017, Phil, for just a second, so bear with me. So this is essentially an IQ top 8 that didn't get labeled correctly. And this is a pretty wild non-stock D&T deck list, where I was on a 3-color build featuring Orzhov, Pontiffs, Blessed Alliance, and Magus of the Moon. And this is a 4th place finish. So this pile of shit worked. And this was a deck list that was built for a relatively small expected metagame, where I had my finger on the pulse of the format. I knew exactly what sort of things I was trying to beat. Now, this was a long time ago, but I think Blessed Alliance was there as a card that was going to overlap for the burn matchup, as well as True Name Nemesis. And then I think Elves was also relatively popular, hence like the Cunning Spark Mages and Orzhov Pontiffs. And this is a deck list that I wouldn't be, got dead playing today, right? Like, this is crazy talk. But at that exact moment in time, this was good and it worked. So now the question is going to be, is the deck that is on screen absolute crazy nonsense that my Discord members have conspired against me to have me play? Or is this going to be one of those things that is good for this very, very, very brief snippet in time? So there's some intentional spice in here. Ondural Flame of the West is a card that I have absolutely destroyed people with in Limited. +3 power is a really huge bump, especially if you put it on a creature with evasion. And if you put this on a legendary creature, of which we do have multiple in the deck, including our Yorion, you get spirit tokens tapped and attacking immediately rather than just in play. I don't really know if this is good enough to pass the bar of Legacy playability. And given how infrequently in the past couple of years I've chosen to fetch up like Jitte or Sword of Fire and Ice over Kaldra and Batterskull, the answer is probably it's not playable, but sometimes you gotta test to know, and that's something that I really like to do on this channel. We have Werefox Bodyguard as a piece of tutorable removal that interestingly has flash, and you can also gain some life off it if you are in a pinch. And Kutzil's Flanker is one that I've never seen played, like on the other side of the table, or played. It's an interesting one. So you can get a +1/+1 counter on it for each creature that left the battlefield under your control this turn, if something like a Terminus or a Supreme Verdict happens. You can gain 2 life and scry 2, or probably most importantly for this deck, you can exile target player's graveyard. Now, WotC won't give me my 2-mana Rest in Peace Bear, but with things like Canoptic Scarab Swarm and this, we have gotten more reasonable graveyard hate effects attached to bodies. So some questions I have going into the league before we get started here. Is it reasonable to play colorless flex slot lands in this deck? Normal 60-card D&T plays the 4 ports and 4 wastes, and that's a little sketch, and you get to get away with it because of Aether Vial. In this build, I think 2 more colorless lands is okay. You get Chrome Mox to kind of give you some additional white-white support. And you do need that white support. Like, you can't curve out into your removal spell. It feels pretty bad. The last time I played a Death and Taxes list that looked like this, that had both Chromox and Aether Vial, if memory serves, it was an unmitigated disaster. So here's to hoping that it goes better today. And if you like any of the cards you see today, like Kutzil's Flanker, check out Cool Stuff Inc. and use promo code ThrabenU to save a little bit on your order while supporting my content. Let's battle. All right, let's do it. We are on the most classic of D&T starts with turn 1 Aether Vial backed by Rishadenport. And while our hand doesn't really do anything in a hurry, as long as Aether Vial resolves, we're in pretty... never mind. In the kind of post-prismatic ending Force of Negation world... awkward. So I get to all right, I'm going to finish that thought first. In the post-prismatic ending Force of Negation world, turn 1 Aether Vial is less likely to just tick up for the entire game, is kind of where I was going with that thought. I'm going to opt to always have access to white this game, rather than keep my Rishadenport around. How dare you. My opponent finds Trop. We're probably playing against some sort of Bug Beans deck. I will go ahead and just port down the Wasteland and kind of force my opponent's decision on whether or not they want to do this immediately. I'm going to be surprisingly bad versus Life from the Lone Wasteland this game. Elvish fuck. Okay, sure. We're playing against Rhinos. We've got some decent tools here to help with this, but some things are definitely going to be a little bit awkward. So we're going to Swords to Plowshares 1 Rhino token. I'm going to play an Aether Vial. I don't think I am going to Solitude immediately. I think I'm willing to take 4. If I draw a land drop on my next turn, I will just Flickerwisp the token and move on with my life. And if I don't draw a land, then I need to start thinking about solituding. Sure. Lorien Reveals are really doing some work in helping my opponent hit their land drops. Pile goes up. Alright, I missed on my land drop. That probably means I now begrudgingly solitude. Skyclave Apparition is non-token here. It can be helpful against like a Minsk and Boo specifically, but I think I'm just going to keep the Flickerwisp because Flickerwisp has evasion and does some trixies while also killing tokens, and doing something like Flickerwisping out one of my opponent's lands like can be a very valid play. Obviously don't block here. We'll just take that 2. Now I do have to keep in mind that my opponent can end of turn Violent Outburst to get a bunch more Rhinos. I think I'm just passing the turn with my mana available. I'm not going to attack. I'm going to hold this back to be a blocker for Shardless Agent. Okay. At the point where I've made it through my opponent's, or my end step rather, I'm going to go ahead and just eat some stuff out of graveyards. I'm going to leave up Caracas for a Boo token though. There's the 4th mana. A Petty Theft. That is unfortunate. What occurs? So now do I want to trade Lion Sash for Shardless Agent? Given the number of permanents in graveyards, I think I'm okay with that. I'll just block, eat my Solitude to grow to a 2/2, and kind of begrudgingly take the trade. File goes up to 3. Removal spell's solid. I think I'm just going to use this opportunity to put the Yorion into my hand and pass the turn. I don't think I'm going to flicker out a land. There's a good amount of time where I want to flicker a token, Swords a token. I will put the Flickerwisp into play. It's really awkward because I want to tick this vial up to 5 to like reuse Flickerwisp, but I'm not getting my like good initial Flickerwisp ETB value here. Vial to 4. Ghost Quarter. I don't think I'm interested in Ghost Quartering my opponent. I'm not going to attack. I'm just going to pass the turn. I am largely on the defensive for this game. Opponent can play that Brazen Borrower. I'm not going to immediately Swords to Plowshares it, because sometimes my opponent does something like play a Minsk and Boo or not a Violent Outburst, like a Shardless Agent pre-combat for some reason. Changes my evaluation of stuff. Like, the Swords is nice to have if Murktide gets involved, for example. My opponent's doing a tappy-tappy. That's fine. Minsk and Boo doesn't happen this turn now. Maybe at this point I'll Swords. I don't want to take 3. My opponent chose Ice over Fire here. Like, just valuing that card very highly. I'm not sure that's correct with, like, Yorion coming. I'm not also sure that it's wrong. Alright, sure. So I get the beloved Vial to 5 here. Now we have Vial on 5 with Karakas, Yorion. Karmak's dead draw at this point in the game. A land would be stronger. I think I am okay attacking for the 3 here. I have a whopping 31 points of life to get through. So it's going to take a while. I don't think I am currently interested in play Yorion, bounce Flickerwisp, flicker out a land. But I could change my mind. Yeah, this is fine. My opponent will get their Rhinos, and then I will start chipping away at them with Yorion Flickerwisp. Okay, yeah. Light misclick on my part. I was supposed to tap this vial in second main. I just literally double-clicked the mouse rather than single-clicking. The reason you do that is so that you get the Flickerwisp back at end step and you start doing it, but I can eliminate both Rhinos very easily. So I have a bunch of, like, almost functional cards in this matchup. And I think Deafening Silence is a great example of this. Deafening Silence reads, each player can't cast more than one non-creature spell each turn. So Deafening Silence doesn't actually stop Shardless Agent into Rhinos, it only stops Violent Outburst into Rhinos. And other than Violent Outburst, our opponent isn't going to cast 2 spells in a lot of games. I actively like having extra removal. The Battle of Bywater is solid. It's a way to get both Rhinos at the same time. Council's Judgment is okay. And then you run into, like, this awkward tier of cards where you would not be embarrassed to play any of these cards, but they only really fight one thing each. So Samwise seems pretty situational and unnecessary. Ondural seems slow here. I think those are my, like, gut reaction first cuts. Lauren can probably go. Like, we're thinking Rhino, Minsk, and Boom, and Murktide Regents as the most important things to answer, and that doesn't check any of those boxes. Spirit of the Labyrinth is surprisingly bad against my opponent's blue deck. They're not playing traditional cantrips because of the Cascade mechanic. Skyclave's awkward. It misses Murktide Regent, but hits Minsk and Boo. I might trim one of those. I could also trim a Recruiter. Let's trim one Skyclave. This is probably a pretty reasonable hand. I'm going to go ahead and keep this one. The conceptual hope is turn 1 Mother of Runes into Stoneforge Mystic, and then I just have, like, a Caldra or a Batterskull or something. Ooh. This may be a situation where I don't play Aether Vial. Yeah, I think this is a strange situation where it is correct to just play Mother of Runes over Aether Vial. My opponent's deck doesn't have all that much removal, and by playing Mother of Runes and not playing Aether Vial, I get some virtual card advantage by ignoring Force of Negation. I think taking the turn off to play Aether Vial can allow my opponent to get really far ahead on board and make my mom into Stoneforge on the draw lines significantly worse. Okay. Is it a removal spell, or are you cascading? It is a removal spell, and that's a-okay with me. So now I have a much better Aether Vial line. Chromox, again, not looking strong here. I get to knock my opponent off of two of their primary colors at the same time while attempting to resolve Aether Vial. And it does resolve. Now, my opponent doesn't need that much mana to operate, but the hope here is that my opponent then plays a colored mana source, and they have to wasteland my Rishadan Port. Then I just like Rishadan Port again and let Vial get all that mana-y goodness going. Vial goes up. So Amaria's Call is good with Chrome Mox, like that's why it is in the deck. I am going to force my opponent to wasteland though. Like I want to knock them off that color. It's a little weird because like I still in theory could have that 2 mana, but since my opponent is going to wasteland me in the end step, it doesn't really do me any good. Okay, fantastic. No land drop from my opponent. Force of Vigor. Well, good thing we didn't play out Chrome Mox. Vial goes up. So we're going to keep holding Chrome Mox until it makes sense to play it, because Amaria's Call can also just be a pitch card for Solitude, which is a stronger line, because I don't have a lot to do with Chrome Mox mana right now. If I draw another land this turn, then Chrome Mox enables some good lines. So now I decide whether or not I just want to shock in Amaria's Call or give up another card. I'm willing to like give up either Mom or Solitude or something. I can shock in Amaria's Call, Chrome Mox, and then Stoneforge while also porting. I think I like that line best. And I think I'm giving up Mom because these Solitudes are starting to get into castable range. And Stoneforge into Caldra is pretty damn good at ending a game. Especially when my opponent doesn't have blue mana for a bounce spell. And I get to pretty much keep them off of fire. Like they can Spirit Guide into it or something. Like they've got lines. Island Cycle, you bet. Yeah, the Spirit of the Labyrinth does have text versus Lorien revealed. But like at the point where my opponent can hard cast 5 mana spells, they're taking a turn to do a draw 3, that's like not the end of the world for me. Alright. Solitudes are officially hard castable. We're going to go to Combat City and send them. I believe that the land that I port down is Tropical Island in respect of blue for a Murktide Regent. Like, I have Murktide Regent theoretically handled with multiple copies of Solitude, but I still want to respect that card. Yeah, there's the Petty Theft. I still think Caldra is the piece of equipment that I get. That Wasteland is quite good for my opponent. I think they should have fired it off already. But here we are. I think I am interested in Recruiter of the Guard for like Flickerwisp or something like that. I'm going to get in the deck and figure it out though. Like I can also just pick up a new Stoneforge equipment. I could pick up a Thalia. Just make it more difficult for my opponent to cast spells, make Wasteland on Rishadan Port a little worse. I think I'm okay with that. Like, this Thalia looks a little weird, but if my opponent, like, taps out to play something on their turn, and then I get to just Solitude answer their thing without Force of Will being involved on the back end, I think that's pretty good for me. It can be bad versus, like, a Fire Ice that takes out 2 creatures at once, but I don't really care about the Recruiter of the Guard body right now. I think I'm just sending it. My opponent can't realistically Violent Outburst into Rhinos. They would need double Spirit Guide. There's a Spirit Guide. Okay, there's double Spirit Guide. Sure. So I think I Solitude the Rhino that blocks Thalia, rather than just take a Rhino out before blocks. I miss 1 point of damage, but I think keeping this Thalia alive is a big deal. Yeah, like I lose a Recruiter of the Guard body. Not a big deal this portion of the game. And I'm not interested in pitching a removal spell to use a removal spell right now. I just don't think that makes sense. All right, my opponent's Rhino is on the defensive. Recombat Solitude or just Swords? I think just Swords. Mana's a little awkward with like my opponent's Wasteland just hanging out. All right, there's that Force of Will I tried to play around by using Thalia. I don't actually bind it here. Like, I don't attack for a turn, but now I just get to resolve a Recruiter of the Guard, pick up a Flickerwisp, flicker this Rhino token, or the Solitude, or the Cauldron for that matter. And this also gives me a good play for if my opponent does end up wastelanding me to take me off of 5 mana for this hypothetical Solitude.
Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, which is an absolutely awesome place to keep all of your deck lists. I keep all of my personal deck lists there as well, in addition to all of the stuff that I do for the stream. And in the future, they're going to have a social media site on here too. So if you're worried about other certain websites dying, maybe join Moxfield, put your deck lists up there, and in the future, you'll be there for social media stuff too.
Okay, this is a reasonable Chrome Mox D&T opening hand. It enables me to play Stoneforge Mystic on turn 1, kind of turning this hand from something mediocre into something that has the potential to be strong. It's kind of awkward though, because I might just walk a Stoneforge Mystic into a daze. Lauren is probably not going to be great in this matchup. Like with Tropical Island, like my first thought goes to Beans. It could be some other things, it could be blue-green show and tell, and putting Lauren in off of Omniscience could save our butts or something, but I think we're just going to attempt to jam and try to get a Force of Will or removal spell from our opponent. Stoneforge does resolve. Now we play the Which Equipment is Correct game. I don't think it's Cauldron. I think Cauldron just gets stuck in my hand too high of a percentage of the time. I might just take Lion Sash and keep my opponent's graveyard in check. That can really matter for things like Murktide Regent or Life from the Loam for that matter. Lion Sash just gives me a very reasonable play for her by next turn cycle. Yep. All right. Expected play is expected. Aether Vial is an awkward draw. Because if I'm going to eat graveyards, I want to start doing it immediately. Because eating one card out of the graveyard is literally the difference between Murktide Regent being castable or not off just a naturally drawn blue source. And like, now we kind of see some of the awkwardness of having Chrome Mox and Aether Vial at the same time. I'm going to say since I have a Solitude that could already deal with a Murktide Regent, I'm just going to go ahead and accept this. And then if I get to untap with my mana, I will probably pretty aggressively go after the graveyard. Yes. All right, opponent opts for the Vial over the Lion Sash. I'm happy. My Vial was not even good. Like, that was many, many, many turns away from having any meaningful impact on the game. Send them. And now we very aggressively start eating my opponent's graveyard. I always want to leave up one activation of this thing, but we'll pretty heavily attack the graveyard here and be perfectly happy doing so. Notably, Lauren could have destroyed a Leyline Binding, given how the matchup is progressing. I am now going to lose Lion Sash. That's okay. Both my cards are like very awkward to cast right now. Like, I would strongly prefer to use these as removal spells. So I'm going to not put pressure on my opponent, which sucks, but I'm just going to put Yorion into my hand. Like, Werefox Bodyguard can eat an Uro. Recruiter. Sure. I'll play that, see if it resolves, and then I'll decide whether or not I'm playing a Ganjo as a land. If it resolves, I almost certainly am. So, I can get Flickerwisp, Flicker Recruiter of the Guard, but that's relatively weak versus a removal spell. I think I'm kind of into just get Stoneforge Mystic and fetch a piece of equipment out of the deck. I think I like that. I am going to just play this as a land. I think I'm going to be running into a lot of situations where I end up wanting to hardcast or equip some stuff. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I might just grab on Duril and try to go wide. Let's test this card. It's like against a grindy control deck with a bunch of 1-for-1 removal trades. Like, this is the situation where this card could be good. Let's see if it is good. I have to keep in mind that Terminus may be coming now, either as my opponent's next draw or 2 cards down. Oh my gosh, it's Terminus. Who could have seen this coming? Alright, get out. So, my opponent needs to find a finisher. I'm probably most scared of 4th Aerlingas, because it creates multiple bodies at the same time and gives my opponent the Monarch. And I'm not currently established on board. Alright, so this is where the real game begins. My opponent now has Up the Beanstalk. What do? I can resolve 2 spells pretty easily. Like, I can play Undural and Flickerwisp. It just, like, doesn't really do anything. I probably just need to put a creature into play, though. And I don't know how interested in, like, end of turn flash in Solitude I am. I think I'm going to play this, kind of use this as my Force of Will test card. And then try to resolve a body. Yeah. Note that Flickerwisp can flicker Leyline Binding, but doesn't really accomplish anything. Alright, so my opponent opts to take out my body and give me the sword. That's reasonable, and that's what I think you're supposed to do. But I tried to bait my opponent with the sword. Now, the sword does make some of these, like, random generic bodies much, much, much stronger. Alright, my opponent gets to super refuel here. And without Aether Vial, like, or Karakas, the Yorion is pretty mid. Gecklave is reasonable. Like, that takes out Up the Beanstalk. Unless this happens. Sure. So the current plan is now flash in Werefox Bodyguard at end of turn, and then equip it with this. 4th Aerlingas, again, absolutely terrifying still. Uro is fine. My opponent drawing the Uro makes me slightly less happy about just flashing in Werefox Bodyguard as a generic creature, but if my opponent just fetches and plays it, then, like, playing Werefox Bodyguard becomes very good. Alright, cool. So, with this draw trigger on the stack, we'll now flash in the Fox and exile Uro. Ah, rats. My opponent has another one mana piece of interaction. So, based on the new templating of this card, and this new templating is probably like 10 years old at this point, this trigger does not actually resolve, unlike some of the other ones, you know, that are formatted like, say, Flickerwisp. This is a terrible draw at this stage of the game. So here's to hoping for no Force of Will. We've seen a couple of Force of Wills already. So we short-term answer this problem, but my Yorion has just no ability to be good right now without Karakas, without Aether Vial, and I don't even have, like, creatures in play to blink with it. Going down cards for Chrome Mox is really costly right now. Like, in the early game, it allowed me to play that turn 1 Stoneforge, but right now, every card counts just so much in trying to keep up with my opponent's card advantage. Okay, so I'm going to have to dodge both Force of Will and spot removal, but, like, I, in theory, can Yorion blink this and be okay. But my opponent will have 3 cards in hand, and there's a real good chance that they're going to have a Swords to Plowshares, Leyline Binding, or Force of Will. 2 swords have been used. 2 Force of Wills have been used. 2 Leyline Bindings have been used. Yeah. And no additional land drop off Uro there means that my opponent's cards are gasoline. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I cannot Yorion while playing Thalia first. I could try to wait this out, go to combat, attack for 6, but my opponent's just at 28. I think they just let the attack go through rather than block with Uro. So let's see if we can get a little lucky here. We'll blink our Solitude. That's honestly a little lucky. What are you doing now that you wouldn't have done before? Right, sure, you're just using mana. I don't know, I feel like I would have brainstormed in response to the Yorion. If you're going to set up a Terminus, I guess that's fine, but defending this Uro seems good. I don't know, maybe I'm just always losing the game when my opponent eventually finds their copy of... Oh, okay, that makes sense. Fuck that. That's 8 angels. 8 times 4 is more than 23. We don't need to do the math from there. I can gain 6. These are tapped. Gain 6, go to 29, block 1, takes 7 times 4, 28. Be just short of being alive. Well, we struggled pretty damn hard, but we couldn't get there. Okay, so conceptually, I like Rest in Peace to kind of deal with Uros and some other things like Mystic Sanctuary for Lorien Revealed in the late game. I don't hate Council's Judgment as another way to answer up the Beanstalk and Leyline Bindings. Then we get into like this secondary tier of cards where we have some stuff that are playable, but I'm not excited about them. I don't really like Jitte here. I don't really like Chrome Mox here. That said, my deck is kind of built with, like, the number of land in my deck is a reflection of the fact that Chrome Mox is a part of my mana base, so I'm not sure that I get to actually cut it. I could trim. I could probably trim 2. I still have 31 lands plus 2 Chrome Mox. It's a little sketch. Trailblazer's Torch is an equipment I can fetch up that is less vulnerable to spot removal. I think I'm into that. I think I'm going to get rid of Werefox Bodyguard. Like, I would prefer that my creatures be proactive in a lot of cases. So let's try this. I think Chrome Mox is very actively a detriment to me in this matchup. This hand is not get out ahead of my opponent, which is conceptually what I would like to do. However, this is a 5-land hand when I have trimmed 2 of my mana sources already, and Lauren is like a relevant card in this matchup. I'm just going to play this and get the ETB tapped thing out of the way. If my opponent wants to wasteland me, that's fine. I'm planning on wastelanding them back. So the most annoying thing my opponent can do is fetch land pass. Otherwise, we're pretty okay with most of their turn 1 lines. So I think I'm going to full-on wasteland here rather than just Rishadenport. I don't think I want to give my opponent a chance to like cycle a Lorien Revealed in their upkeep in response to a Rishadenport trigger. I think that can be quite detrimental to me. All right, we are not drawing the small creatures off the top that I hoped we would draw when I kept this hand. All right, no Lorien Revealed. So we'll just tappity-tap. Okay, yeah. So opponent would have fired off a Brainstorm last turn if I poured it instead of wasted. I'd like to draw either a 1 or 2 drop here. Thanks, Chrome Mox. Right on time. Like, it's possible Chrome Mox gives me a jump in mana that I need to do something like play Lauren while also continuing to Rishadenport, but the cost of that is giving up a Solitude, which I am in no world interested in doing. So, this hand is awkward. We've taken 4 draws without drawing any 1 or 2 drops, which is pretty brutal. My opponent, in theory, yeah, wants to fetch to clear their Brainstorm, which means double Rishadenport still has text. Okay. I get to play the game of actually choosing what colors I take them off of with Rishadenport. Sure, that's fine. Like, I'm very happy when my opponent plays that, and it is not actively taking out my creatures. So I think I would like to take them off of main phase white mana. And I'm just going to force all the mana out in the upkeep rather than moving to the draw step. Oh, they're going to just cast something. It is another Orcish Spellmasters. Sure. Then I will tap your Trop in response. I'm not going to do something like Pitchcast a Solitude. I'm kind of okay taking some small amounts of damage from Orc tokens. My opponent does not have further land drops. That's really good information. Recruiter of the Guard is interesting. So if I just use all my mana to Solitude, my opponent gets to use their mana in an unchecked way. And Force of Will is very good against that, so I don't think I'd do that. I think I play Recruiter and see if this gets Force of Willed. It does not. So now, what am I interested in doing? I don't think I am on the port my opponent forever plan when they have more bodies in play. I think I'm going to grab like Stoneforge Mystic here and play it with the intention of getting a castable piece of equipment, probably Batterskull. That way, removal on Stoneforge Mystic isn't the end of the world. I haven't given my opponent a single Swords to Plowshares or Leyline Binding target yet. So, like, we should expect that Stoneforge Mystic is going to die. So, kind of the awkward thing with the composition of my hand is that it's very hard for me to double spell even if I do something like imprint Lauren under Chrome Mox. I am conceptually trying to wait and play Lauren until I have Karakas, because like Lauren Karakas is very good against what my opponent is doing with all these enchantments. But that's I may just be forced to play Lauren in the short to medium term here. How do I feel about this trade? I think I'm okay with the trade. Like, I think a Terminus style card ends up coming up before a Blink style card does. And also, like, even after taking the block, I am just at 12. The best timeline for me is the timeline where this Lauren resolves. And I get to get a new Stoneforge trigger if I take this out. I could just take the Up the Beanstalk. I think I'm interested in this card advantage. I'm going to use this ability. I think I just need something on the board right now. And if Lion Sash resolves, might just play Chrome Mox, imprint a Solitude, and eat one random card out of my opponent's graveyard. I'll eat a land out of their graveyard in case there's a Life from the Loam. Eating once means that a third Orcish Bowmasters would not kill my Lion Sash. And like with this many mana sources in play, just sinking mana into Lion Sash until my opponent sweeps the board is pretty reasonable. Okay, this is fantastic actually. So this means that my opponent did not just set up a Terminus on top of their deck, which is kind of huge. Yeah, my opponent very highly values taking that card out. That's fine. Like, I am very much at the point where I will hardcast pieces of equipment. I'm not going to trade Lauren yet. I'm okay with waiting on that. Lauren is 2 points of vigilant damage per turn, and in theory gets even better over time. So 3, 6, 7 mana. I think I'm into Batterskull and Rishadan Port my opponent off red. Send it. It's possible Solitude is better than Batterskull. Yeah, let's do that. So Rishadan Port my opponent off of red. Sure. Then I'll let them proceed from there. I think my opponent found Terminus. They did. 'Tis a miracle. This is fine. I'm going to set a draw step stop here. I don't think I'm playing Solitude anymore. I think I just draw step double port my opponent now. I think this just sets up my next turn to be better. Okay, cool. Not cool. I was hoping that was going to be something like a Murktide Regent that I could just remove with a Solitude. So where are we at regarding Force of Will this game? None. Awkward. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can do a 5-drop and Rishadenport. Alright. Let's do that. The Force of Wills are very good against me right now. I think until my opponent shows me a second red source, I just never give them the I never give them the opportunity to cast 4th Airlingas. It's slightly awkward because, like, by porting, I lose the opportunity to bounce a Batterskull in response to something like a Leyline Binding. Oh, God. So at some point, the floodgates are going to, like, bust open, and my opponent just gets to Ancestral every turn, and we don't come back from that. Is this game 2? This is game 2. I might want to concede and save time for game 3. I don't remember, because I'm using my recording brain for other things. We're not out of this yet, but life's bad. All right, fantastic. Lion Sash is... No, not Lion Sash is in exile, not back in my deck. Initiative? Initiative sounds good. I don't think Stoneforge makes it back around the table. So I am going to do this in a counterable way, because I don't think I get to do it uncounterably. This is awkward because, like, Orcish Bowmasters is a card that exists in my opponent's deck, so, like, it is possible that they can just deploy a flash creature. And that kind of forces my hand on Solitude if I want to try to win the game via initiative. Mystic Sanctuary for Swords to Plowshares. Well, I guess they don't really need to be drawing a gajillion cards if... Oh, yeah, it is Bowmasters. With Stoneforge removed and triple up the Beanstalk in play, I think I'm just going to concede. Oh, that was the match. All right. That's fine. I think this one is over. So Chrome Mox continues to just be awkward and largely worse than just another land. Like, maybe at some point we play against some fast combo decks where, like, the Chrome Mox is a deal breaker, but, well, this is probably a combo deck. Bad lands is not the sign of fair Magic the Gathering. Grizzlebrand and Atraxa. Okay. Are you going now? Alright, you unmask me. I lose Flickerwisp, and then Chrome Mox, by extension, gets shut off and turned into a non-card. Guess I am going to imprint this Amaria's Call. I am certainly not going to have time this game to play it as a land. Or sorry, play it as a spell, rather. Actually, I'm not going to have time to play it as either. So, what we do here is we get Yorion to hand. The way that I can conceptually maybe string together a win in this game is by assembling a flyer with Mother of Rune's protection. But we probably lost this one when I did not have a turn 1 or 2 Hate Bear. Like, there's a reason Death and Taxes sideboards tend to be filled with all sorts of, like, fairies, deafening silence, surgical extractions, mindbreak traps, and things like that. Like, you need those cards to bridge to your mid game. You need them very, very, very badly. The Yorion decks are constructed in a way so that you have a lower density of Hate Bears than a 60-card deck. Like, if Thalia is, for example, a central card that you need to draw, you're less likely to do so in your 80-card deck. So having more pieces of combo hate in the sideboard tends to be pretty important. And I'm not really, like, keeping track of the numbers of, like, things in the D&T sideboards, but this sideboard seems pretty fair relative to the norm, in my opinion. Oh, I exhume. I get a Flickerwisp. That's, like, not nothing. I can flicker out the Grizzlebrand and force my opponent to make their draw-based decisions right now. I will do that. So I assume my opponent draws 7. Do they draw more? If they draw more, Reanimate becomes awkward. All right. Okay, that's another Faithless Looting. A new Atraxa in yard. Yeah, there's Reanimate. which is why you don't want to do another draw 7. And I can animate dead to Atraxa trigger again. Sure, this is all fine. They have Entomb, so if they have some sort of game 1 bullet, like say in a Leshnorn, it's kind of a big deal. Archon of Cruelty is very good. It gains my opponents some life, which means that they're less likely to just die to something accidentally. I think I'm sacrificing Flickerwisp in hopes of eventually assembling Mother of Runes plus Flyer. I'll discard Batterskull here. I want to keep Yorion and land. I don't think I'm competitive in this game anymore. Like, I basically have to rip an answer to Archon of Cruelty and then rip an answer to Atraxa. And that's pretty tough to do, just mathematically speaking. It has to be something like Swords to Plowshares into Caracas. By the way, we're returning a Gristlebrand to play too. And missing that draw just means that I'm dead. The Archon makes me sacrifice Mob. And this is more than 17. So, I want Deafening Silence, Path to Exile, Rest in Peace. Peacekeeper is for this sort of matchup. It's not for a fair matchup like Delver. This is for the like very unfair creature-based matchups. I want Fairy, and then Battle of Bywater and Council's Judgment are like things that I'm not excited to play, but I might end up playing. So Jitte out, Samwise out, this out. This doesn't have any limitations, right? Yeah, it doesn't. Let's go Skyclaves out. I'm bringing in enough cards that things that are in the deck are probably going to be better than Lauren. Lauren can, like, technically hit and animate dead, and, like, that's a thing. Don't know that I'm particularly excited about that. Stoneforge Mystic is often going to be a tutor for Lion Sash. I think I can cut Batterskull without caring. Timeless Dragon does something cute in this matchup in that it's something you can put in your graveyard to get back via Exhume. But I don't really know that that is where I want to be conceptually. Like, I want to bring in 10 cards, and then there's a couple more beyond that that are still playable. So I think we're just going to no-sir that. Beyond that, Flickerwisps aren't particularly great. I probably need to leave one in the deck as a Recruiter of the Guard target. But my creature count is starting to get low. I'm not really sure what the exact ratios are for when like Vile and such starts to get sketch, but actually we might already be there. Like, what if I cut 2 Aether Vial since I'm going down so many creatures and then just like max out on ways to get out of my opponent's creature being put in play? I want to stop it from getting into play in the first place, but I only have like 5 anti-graveyard cards, like 5 extra ones from sideboard. After a mulligan, I would probably be acceptable keeping this. But like this is very slow as a graveyard hate, and I have much better early game plays. This is fine. I'm not going to say this hand is super exciting or anything. But I have a turn 1 play with a piece of Disruption in hand. And I have a reasonable turn 2 play. Spirit of the Labyrinth shuts off, Faithless Looting shuts off, Grizzlebrand draws. I can remove this draw stop. I don't need that anymore. So the problem with hand-based graveyard disruption is that like some portion of the time the opponent just like thought seizes you or unmasks you or griefs you. And then you lose out on your thing. Which is exactly what's happening here. So now I just take the hand off the mouse, and if my opponent can go for it, they've got it. This is a time where, in theory, if I had a Chrome Mox to Spirit of the Labyrinth on turn 1, my opener is much stronger. But we're an 80-card deck, so things don't necessarily always line up that way. Okay, cool. So you're telling me there's a chance. Okay, in this specific instance, Chrome Mox was the absolute perfect draw. So I imprint Werefox Bodyguard so that I can cast Spirit of the Labyrinth. And I think I'm not protecting Spirit of the Labyrinth. Like, I think I'm just getting in there. My opponent's not going to have too many removal spells in their deck list. And every point of damage matters versus a reanimate deck. If my position becomes a little bit stronger and I have like a secondary thing in play, then we can start thinking about holding back the Mother of Runes. I guess I should attack first. Now I think I'm holding back Mom to protect Spirit, because Rest in Peace is such a strong secondary effect that I think it's worth not losing this. It's possible I'm wrong, and I still just need to be attacking with Mom, because Show and Tell is a 3-mana thing that could, in theory, happen this turn off Dark Ritual, and every point of damage matters. But my opponent packs it in. So when I'm on the draw, do I want to shave some more Aether Vials? Like, I can shave a vial for a Lauren, have another out to Animate Dead. I don't think I'm going to do that. I'm going to keep some vials. My opening hand is not keepable. Like, we have 2 Aether Vials in the deck. They're both here, and we would... Fuck yeah. Oh my god. Us. If I could pick a 6-card hand, this is damn close to what that 6-card hand would be. Like, I have Fairy to stop a turn 1 or turn 2 attempt. I have Rest in Peace after that. I have Caracas to bounce a legendary creature. And I have Solitude to exile something. So this one's good. My opponent takes the Fairy. So that means they are probably going to attempt to creature either this turn or next turn before my Rest in Peace comes down. Or alternatively, they can also take the Rest in Peace. It's eluding. Grizzlebrand and Atraxa. Both legendary creatures, though. So, like, definitely not the end of the world. Let's draw another Fairy. Draw another Fairy. Will it into existence. Fuck, yes. Relationship with Chrome Mox salvaged. So what do I imprint? I'm going to confirm that Caldra is still in my deck. Caldra is still in my deck. I think I am going to imprint Solitude, which makes me slightly worse versus a Show and Tell. But just keep Stoneforge Mystic as a way to end this game after giving myself a temporary hole. Hot damn. Alright, Chrome Mox. You get to be in the thumbnail. Alright, we've got some awkwardness here. But hopefully it works out. We're going to imprint this Amaria's Call. Going to make a land drop and then throw down a turn 1 Thalia. And hopefully this is like a strong disruptive line. I can't just curve this into the sword, which is awkward because like Skyclave isn't particularly a strong draw here. Ooh, never mind. Skyclave's really good against this opener. Goblin? Sure. A Skirk Prospector. The Skyclave is still good. Just a question of like, how do I approach this turn now? I think I'm interested in taking out the Chrome Mox. There's a decent number of creature removal cards that I can draw that let me take out Skirk Prospector later. Whereas it's mostly Flickerwisp that lets me easily take out a Chrome Mox. The issue here is that like Thalia is just like not a good card in this matchup because like all my opponent's good stuff is creature based. And we'll just kind of see how bad this turn is. I maybe shouldn't even have attacked with Thalia. But like with my opponent having Ancient Tomb in play and like automatically taking 4 to 8 damage off it this game, the attack's like not that bad. Ooh, Matron is spooky. That is a Muxus next turn, unless I can kill Skirk Prospector. So if I block with Skyclave, I can't draw Flickerwisp to kill Skirk Prospector anymore. So I do not block here. An unparalleled genius. A man far ahead of his time. We Flickerwisp the Skyclave. My opponent gets a 0/0 blue illusion token. Is Thalia attacking? I take a lot on the backswing. I think no. I think I tried to do pokes in the air. Skyclave comes back, takes out Skirk, and we Ghost Quarter Ancient Tomb to convert it into a mountain. Like, as much as I love my opponent tapping that Ancient Tomb, I think we just need to say no to, like, a Sticker Goblin into Battlecry Goblin turn. Ugh. Alright, opponent started to tap for something and then didn't do it. Chromox, a dead card here. Considerably worse than a land, because I can't play out this sword. And that sword is a very, very important clock increase right now. I think I'm only attacking with Flickerwisp. Like, I think my opponent has a Sticker Goblin in hand, and they were just waiting a turn to see if they draw a card. Like, any land just allows them to 100% Muxus, rather than Muxus, I don't know, whatever it is, like 70% of the time. I will put Yorion to hand. It's something that I can put under Chromox in kind of my worst case scenarios. Okay, so there's the shock. There's Muxus. Oh, right, the reduction from Goblin Warchief. Cool, cool, cool. Namesticker Goblin low rolls. Goblin Ringleader reveals another Namesticker Goblin. Fuck. Opponent basically going infinite over there. 8 mana. They still have a Ringleader and a Goblin Matron. And they have Skirk Prospector in play. I'm so incredibly dead. Yeah, there's a Broadside too. I just, at this point, want to see how far this goes. In theory, if my opponent somehow doesn't kill me, like, Flickerwisp plus Thalia is lethal, but I think it is very easy, yeah, to find Battlecry Goblin, activate Battlecry Goblin once or twice, and then no one needs math where we're going. Yeah. Cool. It's a little bit of damage there. How big is that Muxus? 17? 17. I'll block a Muxus. Then I will block just whatever has the most power. Everything's like 3. I'll block one of those. And I assume that I am dead. I haven't mathed it, but it looks like I'm taking infinite damage. My opponent also has like Broadside Fling, so, you know. Oh, you're just going to sacrifice the blocked things to activate Battlecry Goblin again? No? Yes. Okay, cool. Okay, and we throw the Muxus. Yeah, negative 31. Basically infinity. You know what Deafening Silence says? Deafening Silence says non-creature. Womp womp. I don't really have great things for this matchup. Like, Council's Judgment is incredibly slow. The Battle of Bywater misses a lot of important things and is also slow. This might be close enough to an unfair matchup that I just take a Peacekeeper. And, like, Path to Exile feels bad, but sometimes is necessary. Broadside's kind of an asshole. This card is too slow for this matchup, and probably my lowest priority equipment. Samwise probably goes. It's really cool with Wasteland or Ghost Quarter, but I don't think I usually have time for that. Thalia as a 2/1 first striker is, I guess, redeemable. What are the other modes on this? Yeah, no, that can go. So that gets me these first 3, and then I decide if I want to play the Battle of Bywater or Council's Judgment. Spirit of the Labyrinth is pretty trash. Timeless Dragon also pretty rough. Spirit of the Labyrinth at least trades with an early body. But I am not super happy with this matchup. I'm going to keep this and hope my opponent doesn't do something cool on turn 1. If they don't do something on turn 1, I just play Vile and then port them. But that deck's really good at doing things on turn 1. I don't think I get to throw this back and fish for something better. But sometimes I just get run over. Yeah, like a Skirk Prospector hand is fine. Like, I can slow this down, get Stoneforge in play, and then use Flickerwisps on lands to slow my opponent further. But sometimes they just Ancient Tomb, sacrifice Skirk Prospector, Sticker Goblin, and I effectively die. Not this game. I think that is a absolutely heinous attack. If I have Mother of Runes to ambush there, like, it is a unmitigated disaster. I think that 1 life does not matter. How do I play this turn? I think Council's Judgment denies more mana in the long term than a single Rishadan Port activation does. I'm just going to take this out. And then I think I put Thalia into play awkwardly to make Chrome Mox worse. Like, I don't want my opponent to play Chrome Mox, both because it's mana acceleration and because it is a way for my opponent to get something into play to throw with a broadside. Alright. Floodgates have broken. This is 5 mana for a Fury. Sure. Okay. I'm going to tick Vial up to 3 with the hopes of drawing another land. Hell yeah. So I will now play a Stoneforge Mystic. I think I'm interested in Jete over Kaldra. I think I want that creature control. Now we're going to do a classic D&T trick of move to the end step, activate Vial, put in Flickerwisp. Their Ancient Tomb will return at their next end step, meaning that I get to use it as basically another Rishadan port. And if I get to make it to my turn, I get to Flickerwisp and get Jete counters. And 2 Jete counters in play means that I can fizzle Namesticker Goblin activations. Gah! That's rough. Yeah. We could just get soloed by a Fury without my opponent meaning. Oh, fuck, they put one on Elemental. That might just be because I already have, like, 2 red sources for Goblins. Yikes. This stays on 3. A new Stoneforge. Is that better than just playing Jete? I think it is, because his Fury is currently a problem. So let's pick up a Kaldra, I think. Then we'll do the same thing as last turn. And nuke this Ancient Tomb temporarily while tapping down Mountain. Mountain is the true red mana, which is more valuable than the Cavern of Souls mana. Fuck. Fuck. I can't. Well. Oh man, 8 plus 5 is a bad number, isn't it? If I don't block, I take 8 going to 5 and they throw Fury at my face. So I have to block in some capacity. So I block Flickerwisp on Fury, take 2. And then my opponent can throw Fury at Stoneforge if they want, and I just hope to beat Broadside. That seems okay. God, Broadside is so scary. Yep, okay. So, life's bad. I think I need to tick this up in respect of Yorion. It's a little rough if I draw a 3-drop specifically, which I did not. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So, Yorion goes to hand, and then I believe I Rishadan port my opponent off of true red mana. That keeps him off of red for elementals and red for goblins. Raw mana amount isn't the most important thing anymore. Rabble Master is real good, because that gives my opponent more stuff to throw with Broadside. So I take 3, and then my opponent gets to throw presumably 2 more at my face. I'm at 8. Yep. Or no, I'm at 6. Math. Or no, I'm at 8, then 6. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a hell of a draw. If my opponent's last card is Muxus, fuck me, I guess. I don't know. I think my opponent might still kill me anyway. So this is an objective misplay. My opponent missed 2 points of damage. You wait until after you have made your attack trigger, Battlecry Goblin, and your Goblin Rabble Master trigger. Yep. There we go. So I activate Vial. Yes. Put in Yorion. Oh, sorry, one correction. The Battlecry Goblin was played this turn off Cavern of Souls. What they did was right. Alright, so my opponent lets me go to blockers. I block the most expensive cards. I'm still just going to die, though, assuming my opponent plays properly. They just throw whatever I block with Batterskull at my face, and I'm dead. They don't gain the life. Yeah. Oh, and at this point, I will concede. GG's. All right. Even if the Ghost Quarter was a basic land, I don't think I am keeping this one. Fuck, again. We're going to 5. This is still really bad. I mean, on 5, I keep it. But if you asked me, what kind of deck is this hand good against? I would not be able to give you an answer. One Flickerwisp goes back for sure. And then it's like, do I try to get lucky with something like drawing a Wasteland and setting up Samwise Wasteland? Or do I keep the more solid hand? I think I keep the more solid hand. But like, it is really rough to lead on a non-basic after mulliganing to 5. Like, this is just the big red boss weakness, like, wasteland me. Alright, that is a Grief pitching a Reanimate. We are probably playing against some sort of blue-black scam deck list. In which case, I'm going to lose probably Swords to Plowshares and Recruiter of the Guard here. And be down to an effective 3-card hand after mulliganing. Yeah. That is quite obviously not what I'm looking to draw here. I basically auto-concede to a Wasteland. Yeah. Yeah. Cabal Therapy, though. I'm going to play this one out until I die. Cabal Therapy is a little weird. My opponent could be doing something a little bit spicy. Like, there has to be a reason to Cabal Therapy. Like, it could be some sort of, like, Esper build with Academy Rector, an Esper build with Lingering Souls, just an indication. Fuck! Everything I know and love is dead. And this Grief is going to town on me. Okay. I'm going to fetch something to my hand. No, I'm not. Fuck me. Opponent's deck is unbeatable. Best deck of all time. Seriously, though, what an absolute beating. Like, Grief, Reanimate, Grief, double Cabal Therapy with guaranteed hits and days. Alright, I get bashed for 3. My opponent also didn't shuffle. So there's just more. I'm going to put this Yorion into my hand. Like, you can have it if you want to sacrifice the Grief. I will give it to you. It is a gift. But this Grief just clocks me so quickly. Yeah, Troll is not unexpected here. I'm at 8. I will not be wastelanding my opponent. Like, it can very specifically stop land drop into another Grief, but I have conceptual things to do with mana. And I want to be able to play a 3-drop if I get my own Caracas wastelanded. Sure. We see a different fetch land now. Opponent has stayed rooted in blue-black so far this game. But if they have another color, I don't know that they have a strong reason to show it to me this game. Days. Opponent's deck is unbeatable, confirmed. Like, I guess I could draw just absolute gas off the top of my deck for the rest of the game, and my opponent draws lands, and I could win, but outside of that... It is also green. Yeah, if I ripped a removal spell there, I removal spell Grief, Wasteland Dryad Arbor, and I'm still in it. But our Mold to 5 was not good enough for whatever exactly this is. So it's possible that Dryad Arbor is the only green thing in the deck, and that my opponent is doing just the cute, like, have a bunch of green fetch lands and be able to fetch Dryad Arbor for Cabal Therapy. I don't see what my opponent would be ramping into for this to be something like a Nick Fit deck with Veteran Explorer. So, I don't know. I'm definitely interested in Rest in Peace and additional white removal. I don't know if I'm interested in Fairy and the Battle of Bywater. Like, Fairy doesn't usually stop Grief shenanigans because your opponent just takes the Fairy, but Fairy stopping my opponent from reanimating a troll is kind of a big deal. I don't think this one is fantastic here. Again, Lion Sash and these two are going to be more attractive tutor targets. I maybe even just junk Jete too. I don't know whether or not my opponent is playing something like Stalactite Stalker yet. Samwise from anywhere or from play? From the battlefield. All right. Samwise can go. Lauren can probably go. Got Timeless Dragon like every round. Let's continue that trend. Thalia good? Thalia might not actually be good. I can see Thalia not being good. This gets me one fairy as a tutor target. Let's cut one Chrome Mox and play the second fairy and just help me get out of the early turns. Yeah, this is reasonable. Like, this is a good 6-card hand, assuming the Cauldra is not a real card. So I just go Plains Pass, and it's awkward if my opponent has a Grief Reanimate opener, because like I could choose 2 Swords to Plowshare as a Grief while it's on the stack, but then my opponent still gets 2 cards. Hogak is the reason. Okay, cool. I think I just let my opponent take my swords. Like, they can take swords, and then I get to play one of Rest in Peace or Stoneforge Mystic on my turn. I'm ultimately okay with that. Yep. Like, they probably take Stoneforge and leave me with Rest in Peace. And then I just assume that as long as I draw reasonable land and spell ratios, that I will find a way to win this game. My Rest in Peace could also just get dazed right now. But I don't really think I get to play around that. I don't even know if I would daze that if I was the opponent. Like, they're already ahead on board. If they can daze a 3-drop like this Recruiter later, like, that might just be better. I also don't know whether or not my opponent is going to be playing any basic lands. I don't know if Ghost Quarter is just Wasteland. Alright, I was cold, I got a blankie. I got hit for 3, my opponent played an Underground Sea after Brainstorm. So, are we jamming Recruiter, or am I just playing Vile? I think with my opponent only having 3 power in play, playing Vile is reasonable. It gives me a chance to draw a land to play Recruiter around days and get some virtual card advantage that way. Like, this does mean that I just objectively take 3 more damage 100% of the time. Hopefully that's fine. And Vile can net me some really good things. I'll play this into days here. I'm not gonna wait 2 turns. That's fine. Yeah. That's fine. I'm happy that my mom didn't get pinged by that. 5 damage in play. Definitely a little spooky, though. I don't think I, like, block to save 1 damage like mom will do much better things over time if she gets active. Alright, I'm at 8. Let's put in mom. If we just immediately eat it to another Bowmasters. Oh, we don't. Fantastic. I still think I'm usually losing this game. I think I'll wait a turn on that. I think that card is important enough. Because, like, resolving it gets rid of an Orc Army token and gives me a non-mom blocker. Oh, that's fine. Cycle a troll to shuffle. Alright. Life's pretty bad if my opponent has, like, any reasonable spells. I think I probably have to block and protect this turn to save 1 point of life. Taking 5 and going to 3 means that Grief always kills me, for example, so that's a thing. My opponent gave it a good long think, and then is swinging with everything. We're going to try to block and protect. I actually think I should have blocked that token. My opponent plays another Bowmasters. I take 1 more. Yeah. Although, honestly, I think if they have the Bowmasters, I'm just dead. They just go wide of a single removal spell really easily. It may be that that doesn't matter. And I just try to remove the better card. Yeah, that's probably true. I need a removal spell or I am dead. Nope. Yeah, like I can... Well, I guess I don't technically die, right? I flicker grief in combat. Trade with Orc Army token, go to 1. Alright, I guess I can stay alive. But existence is pain here. Turn off auto yields. Nope, I didn't get it in time. I was supposed to put Yorion into my hand. Do the thing. Or no, actually I'm not supposed to do that. I lose Caldra instead. Caldra is a much worse card. Okay, that was not a mistake. Okay, so my opponent's going to look for a removal spell to get the kill here. And that'll do. They have Revolt because Grief left play. And I am dead. That was an absolute beating, and we go 2-3. So, Chrome Box did some stuff during this league. I can't say that it did nothing, but I think the problem with Chrome Box is that, like, this is kind of by its very nature not a good Chrome Box deck. Chrome Box is usually best when you are using it to accelerate into something that wins the game or highly warps the game. You know, think of it in Storm decks, where, you know, you are using Chrome Box to get you to the mana that casts you something like a Beseech the Mirror that is going to win the game. Or you're using it to cast something like a Magus of the Moon, an initiative creature, or a stronger Hate Bear, you know, maybe something like a Thalia Heretic Cathar or an Anointed Peacekeeper. When you use Chrome Box to accelerate into something like a Stoneforge Mystic or a Thalia, unless that matchup is particularly soft to that card, one removal spell just kind of answers that, and then you've gone down a card. This deck is not the best at playing Haymaker into Haymaker, like something like a Nameseeker Goblin or Initiative deck list might be. So I think conceptually, the speed that you gain from Chrome Box is not going to be worth going down that card most of the time. Evaluating some of the other flex slots in the deck, Werefox Bodyguard looked really good today. This was something we fetched up in one matchup, but we never successfully even attempted to equip it. My opponent just buried us in removal. Given that we played a league, I think fetching this once and never successfully getting an equip, I think that's probably a sign that, like, in the slower control matchups, they just have so much removal that this is just, like, not going to be better than other existing options. We didn't do anything with this card in this league. I think it's probably fine. I would want to see more reps with it. It is at its base an X1, which is, like, awkward in the Orcish Bowmaster's world, but tutorable ability to blow up the opponent's graveyard is a huge deal, and this is one I would like to test further. So yeah, that's my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts about the Chrome Box, and if you need to buy any Magic cards, check out Cool Stuff Inc. and use promo code ThrabenU to save 5% on your next order. And folks, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day. See ya.